Imagine having the ultimate competitive advantage. Imagine every piece of your content attracting ideal clients to you, not chasing them down. That's not a dream, it's what's possible with the right strategy. And if you haven't heard by now, Jeb and LinkedIn expert Bryn Tillman have written the playbook that will evolve the way you sell. Their new book, The LinkedIn Edge, is your ultimate resource for turning LinkedIn into a revenue-generating machine. You'll learn how to prospect with power, network with a purpose, and build a brand that attracts clients to you. Not only that, but they dive into the fundamentals of using AI so that you won't get left behind. Don't wait. The LinkedIn Edge is on sale everywhere you buy books.
With the intelligence platform is how we're going to sell in the future. And then schedule this for me, send this email out, and you're not going to touch the keyboard, more or less. That's the vision of where this is going. And so what's happening in the background is all these agents are doing all these things for you, and all you're doing is talking to the orchestrator, right? The intelligence platform, and it's doing all this thing. This is guaranteed going to happen, that we will be talking to our intelligence platform, not a CRM, an intelligence platform, and all these things will be coordinated.
Today, we are diving into the future of selling. AI isn't just coming for sales, it's already here, and it's changing the game in ways most people don't even see yet. And there's no one better to break all of that down than Victor Antonio. If you've been in sales for any length of time, you know Victor. He's led global sales teams, served as the president of a global sales and marketing team that got to $420 million. He's trained sales pros all over the world. We were just talking about all the places he's been. And he's also the author of 16 books, including Sales Ex Machina, and now his latest, Future of Selling, The Rise of AI Agents. In this book, Victor lays out a bold vision that AI sales agents aren't replacing sales reps, but they're reshaping the role. And from AI-powered SDRs that work 24/7 with predictive models that anticipate buyer hesitations before they do, we're seeing a shift that can either make you more effective or leave you behind. So today we're talking about AI changing sales and how sellers can adapt and what the future holds. Victor Antonio, thank you so much for being here on the Sales Gravy Podcast.
JBJ, thank you for having me on the Sales Gravy Podcast.
You've got this new book. You are prolific and you are one of the best speakers I have ever personally seen. So I'm very excited to have you here.
Thank
but
you.
I wanted to start off with AI sales agents. You argue that they're just not automating tasks anymore, but they're fundamentally transforming the sales role. What's the biggest misconception that sales leaders have about AI and selling today?
Let's start out with the complexities of what's happening in the market today, because everybody thinks like, ChatGPT is kind of the AI we're going to be dealing with. And that's, I forgot who was the author. I think it's Yuval Harari, who wrote the book Sapiens. He said something that just kind of blew my mind. He said that ChatGPT is like equivalent to the amoeba of evolution when it comes to AI. And I was like, yes, because ChatGPT is like the worst it's ever going to get. And I think people think that that's the tool we're going to be using in the future. And I think it's a great place to start. And so the greatest misconception is that it won't replace jobs. I would argue that it will replace jobs. So you're going to see displacement, replacement, and I think the last part is I call it abatement, where people don't hire anybody. Now, that sounds a little dystopian, like, oh my God, everything, this is it. It is dystopian in the sense that it's going to shake everything up. And I think that's the problem I think people are having, that nobody really wants to say that this will shake things up. I mean, this is like it's got to be the quintessential quiescent point of all, a technology transformation beyond the steam engine, industrial revolution, everything. This is like the ultimate technical tsunami. And I think, I think the leaders are downplaying it. I listened to, Benioff of Salesforce, and he uses euphemisms like, well, AI is going to allow us to do certain things, but one of the things we'll have to do internally is rebalance our workforce. That to me is like a euphemism for we're not going to need everybody. And I don't know if I can find, if I move people around, I don't know if I can find places for them. Now, that's the worst part, right? That it's going to shake up. We're going to lose some jobs. People are not going to get hired. Now, on the upside, we go back to what I think it's Iman Mustaq said, who is with Stability AI, the CEO. He said, what is often quoted is that you won't lose your job to AI. You'll lose your job to people who are using AI. And I truly believe that that's the case. Now, again, I think large corporations won't need as many people, but I don't know what that is. Nobody can right size what that corporate size is going to be. So, for example, if it's an enterprise business with 200 salespeople, What's going to be the new size? I don't know. It could be that you're using AI so efficiently that you find more opportunities and it expands. Or you're using it so effectively and maybe you're not finding opportunities that it shrinks. So nobody really knows. And I think that's an honest way to start a conversation, including myself. I don't know. I'm trying to guess. I'm trying to look at the crystal ball, try to figure it out.
So it sounds like the biggest misconception that sales leaders have in the space right now is that they're overestimating the current technology and they're underestimating the impact it's going to have on their team in the coming 5, 10, 20 years beyond. And from what our conversations have really enlightened for me is that salespeople are in a unique position because we are both the entry for most buyers into a product or a service. Like we're the people who are having the human conversation, but everything outside of that becomes very easy for AI to modulate or to help us complete because they're tasks. And so that salespeople who are utilizing AI in a great way will be more human, more effectively over time. But there's going to be a lot of people in the middle who either aren't using it well, and that's going to be one case. They're doing a lot of work, but they're not doing much with it. And then there are going to be people who don't adopt it at all, and those are the people who are going to be left behind. So I think as a sales leader, you're looking at that world. You've read your book, and you're taking some of this advice. You talk about like AI agent orchestration, so a lot of AI agents and getting all these systems together, and you're helping your sales team do more. How can a mid-size or small business start to wrap their minds around AI in their world versus from Mark Benioff in the Salesforce?
Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack there. I think when you started about with the statement about, we tend to overestimate it in the short term, but underestimate it in the long run. That's known as Amara's law of technology, right? And we do that. And it's a good place to start again in this part of the conversation, because what we're seeing in the market now is a lot of people are implementing AI, right? Everybody has it in their prospectus, right? In their business plan, right? Because you got to implement AI, right? Different studies will show you at a high level, what they're finding is that a lot of people are disappointed with the AI, with the implementation. So before we get into what can small companies do, and that is because the expectations are so high. In other words, we think that AI is this magic bullet that's going to solve everything right away in the short term. No, it's more of a long-term game. And so what's happening now is a lot of projects are being implemented and then being killed or canceled or paused because, well, we're not seeing the ROI fast enough. And so there's some level setting that has to happen at the C-suite where you got to say, look, we're investing, but it's not going to happen overnight. This is kind of a long-term game. So having said that, the question then becomes, it's kind of a paradox here because the technology is not fully there to implement the way we ideally want to use it. But we have to start doing something, JPJ, right? So we're stuck between that. And so what companies can begin doing now, and I talk a little bit about this in the book, is that imagine your sales process, right, from A to Z. And I think a window company is a perfect example. Lead comes in, top of the funnel through the website. And again, we set up a meeting, we do an on-site visit, we walk around, we look at the house or the commercial building, we do a proposal, we get an acceptance, sign the agreement, then we do the installation, we do the follow-up, so forth and so on, right? And so there's a whole long sales process there. What companies can begin doing is saying, where's the high leverage activity? What can I look at and maybe AI in this process that will give me the biggest bang for the buck? And in one example I give is I talk about this window company, how one place they could use technology or AI technology is in post-sales support. For example, Andrew Ng founded Coursera, right? And he sold it off, and he has this new company called Landing Lens. And Landing Lens is a vision machine learning tool. And here's how it works. It can actually compare images to its own database to tell you if something's on or off. So how would this work in the window company? So somebody can have a real tangible example as they're listening to this. Imagine you bought the window 1 year later, the seals break. You start getting the steam inside the window, whatever, what am I looking for? The vapors, whatever it may be. And you said, okay, I got to call the company. Scenario A, the way it's done today, I call you up. You're the company. Hey, look, my window seal's broken. You can tell it's broken. I need somebody to come look at it. So, well, okay, we'll have to send somebody out there to do that. Kind of a worst case scenario, right? Now, here's the scenario with AI that's implementable today. What they've done is the window company uploaded all kinds of images of windows with broken seals. And they hit the button that says train. And now their AI machine is trained to recognize images. So now back to the Windows scenario 2. I call up and say, hey, I got a problem. Window's broken. Seal's broken. And then they'll say either point your webcam or send me the JPEG. By sending the JPEG, they'll take the picture of the window. It'll compare it to its database of windows and immediately detect that it is a broken seal. It'll then connect to the ERP system, see if there's anything in inventory. It'll then schedule a tech and find out the calendar date that's available, and then schedule to make sure you're under warranty, and then have something on the calendar to send somebody out. That is how the agents will work. And that is one way of saying, let me just solve this one problem in this long sales process. In this case, customer support, and this is how I would use AI.
It makes sense that you have a relationship with AI that is piecemeal. So what I've learned about AI in the last few months is that it's not
Well said.
It's not like a universe engulfing another universe in terms of knowledge and technology and everything that's going on. It's only really taking in what we feed it, and it can't be fed everything all at once all the time. Otherwise, it'll start breaking itself. And so I think that these companies, and what I've seen internally, is we've tried to implement AI, and it just doesn't have that quality to it in a lot of cases. Right now we're trying to back the right horse. We're trying to find the right business that has the right model that will help, take a piece of the sales process. And the post-sales process makes sense, but in the sales process, how can a sales professional, your ChatGPT is there, but it's generative AI or generative language model, so you can put things in and get things out. And it's really great for that kind of thing, but it's not so great at telling me where to go and what to do and who to talk to and that kind of technology. So where do you see the seller being shifted in tomorrow's market?
So I don't know if I necessarily agree with that it doesn't work. I think the problem a lot of companies are having, and again, if you're saying it's going to fully replace a B2B complex salesperson, I'm like, I don't think so, right? I'm talking more of the transactional piece of selling. I think when we had our chat a while back, I talked about if you look at sales on the spectrum from simple to complex, it's going to be chewing up all the simple stuff very quickly. But I don't think it'll ever fully replace a B2B complex enterprise expert when it comes to selling. I just don't think it'll do that, because at the end of the day, the human always has to be in the loop when it comes to high risk, deals. And so what I see is that let me give you a vision of what this is going to look like. I mean, if you get this, you get this. Because today isn't there, and you said the key word that it feels like it's piecemeal, and which I would say, yes, you're absolutely correct. And because it feels piecemeal, you're going, well, how is this going to work? I mean, how is this really going to replace salespeople? And if you ask me today, can it do it? I would say no. But as you have companies like Salesforce, you have Microsoft with their Copilots building out these library of agents that are going to start talking to each other on a singular platform. And I think that's the big deal here, JBJ, is that a lot of companies are struggling to get their AI game together because their data is everywhere. First of all, they're in different silos, different locations, and the integrity has never been checked. So all of a sudden, one of the biggest challenges across the board, 93% of companies are challenged today with, is trying to how to integrate all this data into one spot, into one place. So for example, again, if I have an ERP system to manage my inventory, that's one system. So that system has to be able to talk to my finance system that approves, financing. Then it has to talk to my legal contract system. And all these systems have to talk to each other. I think that's where the game is right now, that large companies are working on. How do we bring all these data sets together and integrate them? Once you integrate them, then the example with the window, what I explained, will come into play very easily. And then you start looking at, okay, so where are we going to win with that? Customer support, definitely going to be a big win. When you look at customer engagement, again, it'll be able to have these conversations with customers where you're not there. But again, will it close complex deals? I don't think so. I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm trying to give you my vision of how this is going to work. Can I just go 5 years from now?
You can go as many years in the future as you'd like.
Yeah, this is how it's going to work. It will be, there's something called vibe coding that's very popular right now. Vibe coding is you take a large language model, you tie it to a program like Cursor, which writes, software, and then you use WhisperFlow to talk, right? So vibe coding, the goal of vibe coding is to not code.
Yeah.
Is you talk, the large language model understands it, and then tells the program to write the program out. Go online. I mean, it's a mind-blowing what this thing can do today. So in other words, I can say, I want to build a sales gravy website. In fact, I want to build the exact website. And then it can go, large language model understands requests, sends it over to Cursor. Cursor, the programming module goes, rips the code. Every website is just HTML code or JavaScript, whatever it may be, right? So you can take all the code and you can actually see it building the website. And you're talking to it and it's making adjustments. I saw one where the guy didn't like the color and he actually went to another website, grabbed a screenshot and just uploaded it right there in the dialog box. Says, no, I want these colors. And you see the thing coding.
That's crazy.
You see it coding. So again, look up Vibe coding. It'll blow your mind. So take the next logical step. And this is by 5 year. Now imagine that, all of a sudden you're able to do this. Now you can have, through WhisperFlow, you have the large language model, but this time you tie it into, I don't like the way you use the word CRM, because I think CRM is an outdated word or phrase or acronym in this case. And the thing is, I think Gong has a great word. I think they call it a revenue intelligence platform. And I love that because a revenue intelligence platform really encapsulates what I think the future is going to look like. It's not just about a customer relationship management system. It's going to be tied to a CRM. It's going to be tied to the content management system, the ERP, the finance contract. Imagine being tied to all these different databases. And now I'll say something like this. I get up in the morning, right? And I literally just talk to the thing. I said, okay, let me know what I have in the pipeline this week. Did any new contacts or leads come in? And maybe you get one or two. I said, tell me about this company. Give me the top 5 things, It'll go on the internet research for you. Have we ever done business with them before? If so, tell me what they've bought. Okay, they bought that. What are some cross-sell or upsell opportunities? And so it's this dialogue we're going to have with the intelligence platform is how we're going to sell in the future. And then schedule this for me, send this email out, and you're not going to touch the keyboard, more or less. That's the vision of where this is going. And so what's happening in the background is all these agents are doing all these things for you, and all you're doing is talking to the orchestrator, right? The intelligence platform, and it's just doing all this thing. This is guaranteed going to happen, that we will be talking to our intelligence platform, not a CRM, an intelligence platform, and all these things will be coordinated. I gave somebody an example about, I'll be brief, is that let's say I'm talking to a customer and I'm selling pools, right? Customer says, look, if you can make this happen for $300,000, I'll sign the contract right now. Then all I have to do is call the intelligence platform. I said, okay, here's the situation. I got this, this, and this, and this. I need to know, are the materials there for delivery within 2 months? By the way, can I get a discount? Check with finance. Can you rewrite the contract and send me a proposal right away? Or send me the new contract? And then it does all that. And then, book, there it is, your contract. And by the way, I don't have to go to my boss to get approval on pricing because the rules are already set within that agent of what they can and cannot do. Inventory, let's already talking to that agent. Agent says, you're good to go. And so imagine this now happening at the speed of light. That's the vision of what's going to happen. And 5 years from now, well, listen to this podcast and go, was he right or was he wrong? That's going to be deep. I'm going to be spot on. I'm going to be spot on this one.
I like you're calling your shot. Just Babe Ruth. This is your moment. You're just looking at left field.
Pointing. Yeah,
you're looking at right field.
Right.
That's it. It brings up a really interesting dynamic, which is that, if we think about this from a practitioner's perspective, this should be really exciting. If you are a high ticket or complex sell, we sell complex things. We're selling conversations, and we're selling our ability to serve another business. And it's not. There's a lot of salespeople who aren't in fields that is this is a cup, and I'm going to sell you this cup, and this is what the cup does. There's a lot of nuance with different technologies and services and what you do. There's a lot of people who should be taking this in stride, because you hear that and I go, if I could save 6 hours of my week on one deal, I'm not building proposals. I can go, hey, I need all this, and you can get back to me. Think about it. If the customer's in front of you and you've got them in a good place and we're having a great conversation, they're excited to move forward, I can talk to the AI right then and go, contracts in your email right now. That's where we're going, which is incredible. But there's this dichotomy, right? So this all sounds really fun and great, but there are a lot of sales teams. You talk about this in your book. You call it, and I got to get this right, the human in the loop, the HITL, right? So AI and humans work together. But how should sales leaders train their teams to embrace this model instead of fearing it?
Yeah, I think the human in the loop is a concept. I don't know who came up with the concept, but I think it's an interesting idea that you can't trust the AI right away. It's like, one of the earlier complaints of all the GPTs was that they would hallucinate or have some bias, right? In other words, you couldn't trust the data. So somebody has to be there to kind of make sure that the data and the output's correct. So that's why I think that'll never go away. I think even in the future, as this thing gets sophisticated, I still think you'll always have humans in the loop. So I'll give you an example of what happened last week. I had a conversation with the company out of Canada, right? And they're afraid to implement their AI because of these governance rules, right? And these, they call them these guardrails that the
Right.
AI has to have. And until they set those guardrails up, they're not launching anything. And what they're basically saying is, we don't trust the AI. And I think they're absolutely right. I wouldn't trust it right now. And so the paradox again, JBJ, is that we know that what the technology is going to be capable of doing, but it's not doing it today and it's not working the way we want it. And therein lies the frustration. I know what the potential is, but it's not ready. It's almost like, hey, there's this building we're building. It's going to be an awesome building. Oh my God, it's going to be the most beautiful building in the world. Is it built? No, but it will be built. But so the question then, in the meantime, what do you do until the systems get to the point where you can use them? And I think a lot of people are going to be left, a lot of salespeople are going to be left to their own devices, which means you got to find your own AI tech stack to work with. By the way, I'm answering this question from this perspective that a lot of people say, look, my company has not released anything. They're not investing. And if they are investing, it's something small. I can't use it. Victor, what do I do today? Right. And I say there's different tools out there. You use all the GPTs out there. One of my favorites is, have you played with the Notebook yet?
It's really
Notebook?
cool. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So if you use Google's Notebook LM, you begin to see it. You begin to see the possibility, because if I create one notebook and I uploaded, and by the way, if you don't know what it is, basically it's the large language model Gemini, and what I can do is create a notebook, and in that notebook I can kind of give it specific information, right? So for example, since it says Jeb Blount is known for prospecting, I can go in there, upload Jeb Blount's book on prospecting, take all his videos, all his podcasts on prospecting, load everything I can, and all of a sudden that notebook becomes like the ultimate, prospecting notebook that I can ask questions, right? Even create that podcast they have in there, right? But all of a sudden, if you think about it from this perspective, that becomes a prospecting notebook. Then I come over and do upselling. Now I upload my book, right? Shameless self-promotion right there, by the way. Everything on upselling with my book, right? And then everything on upselling. And then now you have a upselling notebook, right? So imagine having now a notebook for each discipline with all sales. Eventually you're going to have a complete library. So that now becomes the ultimate large language model that's a salesperson just joining, the sales gravy team can now use to get their questions answered. And I think that's a good way of looking at what an agent will look like in selling. It will have that domain knowledge, all aspects of selling, right? Because it has all these notebooks and can answer any question. Now imagine being able to give that thing the freedom to now have the conversation with clients, because they know what to say, they know how to say it, because again, the domain knowledge is there. And so in the short run, I tell people, use something like Notebook to basically, help you get through your productive day, right? You can I just downloaded a report by a company called, I think it was Informatica, where they talked about, data cloud,
Right.
data web service. And I'm like, this is too much information. So I said, could you just give me the briefing? You've used it, right? You know what I'm talking about.
I did it this morning. Jeb is not going to like this, but he sent me an article that was in the Wall Street Journal, and he sent me like a PDF of this really long article. And I don't have 30 minutes to really digest all of this. So I just said, hey, GPT Notebook, can you build me a study guide so that when I read this myself, I can read it faster? And then I uploaded it, and it gave me back a notebook, and it was really great because I was able to read it in about 15 minutes, which I had. So yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I love this lesson, which is, the question was, as a sales leader, how do you actually help your team embrace these kinds of things? Well, a little bit at a time, especially if your company isn't implementing anything else because they're right not to trust stuff.
Yes.
Just use the GPTs or the language models and give yourself the runway to start building up to the next step, because there's always that. I was I don't know, I would think I was like 12 when the iPhone came out, or maybe I was 11 when the iPhone came out. I don't remember when it came out. I'm so sorry.
Just make yourself feel old right now. Thank you,
I was 25. Anyways,
Yeah.
and I remember the transition, and there was a lot of people just from as a kid going, I'm not going to use that. Smartphones aren't really the next thing. Like, I don't know how to use this technology. I'm not really into it. And for about 5 years, in about 2015, people went, yeah, I'll just use this phone. It's fine. I don't want to use smartphones. Well, what is everybody using now? There's not a single flip
Smartphone.
phone that you see.
No.
Well, sometimes you see them, but it's weird. And
Yeah, it is
I
weird.
think that's what you're illustrating, is that this is the next. This is a smartphone. You can't, if you are in your middle of your career and you're going, I just don't really feel like I can use this very well. Well, that doesn't matter. You're gonna need to, and so give yourself at least some practice with it. But
Yeah.
this,
Can I just, I want to make sure that people get some nice takeaways from this, because I think the Notebook LM allows you to digest, I'll just say, a lot of information quickly. As you say, you can do notes, you can create a podcast with it, you can download the podcast. But you know this already. You can use it to role play. You can assign it a role, and then you can role play against the GPT, right? One of the things I like to do is have it role play itself if I don't have the language. So I'll just tell it, hey, you're the project manager, but you're also the the project manager. You're also the salesperson trying to sell into this company. Here are the top 5 objections. Role play this, how you would handle it, and to watch the GPT do it. It's quite amazing, because sometimes it gives you, like, again, verbiage that you didn't have.
right.
So these are small things that you can do to start, at least, as you say, dip your toe in the AI water and kind of start using it until the company ramps up to what you really need.
It's incredible when you start to dive into this technology, and I think people know this because they've probably had their toe in it, and you just don't realize what you didn't have before it gave it to you. You're sort of blind to the language, the verbiage, and its writing styles. One thing as a salesperson that I have to work on every single day is, like, I am not a very good writer. I love passive language. I love to end on prepositions. I like hanging modifiers because I didn't care when I was learning all of these things.
I didn't either. I still don't know what a dangling modifier is, by the way.
I just said, I heard it on a podcast, made me sound smart. But I what I've learned is that I don't write well, but now I write much, much better, because you give it, you learn how you can teach it. You can say, hey, I want you to coach me like you are an elite sales coach, and I'm writing a proposal. And then you start writing your proposal, and it will help you sort of test against yourself. Whereas before, you're sort of in your own brain, you're in front of your computer, and you're racking your thoughts, and you go home at night and you're just thinking about it, and nothing really changes. And you get to the final product, and your manager goes, this is not that good. You need to go redo this again. And that's the process. It takes way too long. Before you even get to that stage, you can start really elevating your language. That's the one place to start. If we're talking about sales, language is sales. You have to learn how to use that. And you talk about trust, and building trust in an AI driven sales environment is honestly, it's going to be a major challenge. I think there's going to be a tipping point, maybe like Malcolm Gladwell talks about, where everyone starts to use AI, and then it becomes less of a concept for us to think about every single day. But building trust in an AI-driven world, where the sales professional is using AI for most of their tasks in terms of building, their quotes and proposals and all of that, and the BDR SDR role is largely being done automatically. Buyers might be turned off by that whole process initially. How do you tackle the trust gap that's going to be coming to us?
I was having this conversation with somebody. We're talking about our frustration with customer service, right? And our frustration with customer service is that, they usually it's never a first call resolution, right?
Yeah.
You want to get transferred to somebody else, and you got to give them the information again. And I think society writ large is tired of that. So I think there's going to be a welcoming aspect of AI conversation tool. I'm not talking about chatbots. I'm talking about real conversation tools. If you use ChatGPT's, I don't know what the $20 a month version's called. Do you play with that at all?
It's Pro or Plus. I've got that ChatGPT.
Right. So you could talk to it, right? And you could have a great conversation with it. And I think that's where it's going. It's just a matter, again, people getting their data right and their infrastructure in place. And then we're going to start having conversations like that. Can you imagine a future where you're having a conversation with a voice that knows the products and service? And again, one of the things I also love about it is that if you think about it, if you're a large company like Wayfair, you have 100,000 SKUs, who knows what they have, right? All I got to do is upload the specs on a new product, and it knows Kung Fu. It's trained, right? So no longer do we have to deal with salespeople who don't know the product. So my point is that when you get back to the trust factor, I've always said trust is a combination of three things. One is, can I take your point of view? So that the bot has to, it's funny, it doesn't have to empathize, but I keep telling people it doesn't have to empathize. All it has to do is simulate empathy to really understand where you're at. The second part is to demonstrate domain expertise, be a subject matter expert. That's the easy one. And the last one, I think, the third part of the trust formula is that it has to keep the person's best interest in mind. I think that's where I'll put it the top spin or the English comes in. That as I'm talking to the bot, I want to make sure the bot has my best interest in mind and it's not trying to oversell me. And one could argue almost that the bot will probably be more objective and says, look, I'm not trying to oversell you. This is what you said you wanted. This is what you need. But again, I think, let's get back to the human in the loop, that as the risk goes up in terms of I'm making a big risky decision here, I'm going to want to talk to an individual. And so I think over the next few years, I think there's going to be this dance between people and machines. And I think again, simple to complex being the spectrum, all the simple stuff is going to be AI'd out. I want to talk to a bot, believe it or not. But as soon as I get into the risky stuff, I just want, because again, what are we struggling with today in making the buying decision? If you read the book, The Jolt Effect, right? By Matt Dixon and Ted McNamara, right?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things in there, and that, by the way, that was AI driven, right? There was 2.5 million calls that were analyzed. And one of the things they found is that for people to move forward, that indecision piece, they didn't make a decision because they didn't trust themselves to make a buying decision.
Yeah.
Right? They had low confidence. And so one of the things that I think that the machines will give you is some confidence, maybe a lot of confidence, but we still need in a complex sale, that individual, that person that just holds your hand, a human that says, dude, I'm telling you, it'll be all right. I got you, man. This is going to work. You want to do this. This is the right move. And I think that won't go away.
I wonder where that threshold will be. And it's going to be very different for different industries, right? So,
Yes.
I mean, we're in the sales training and sales enablement space. And we do keynotes and all of that. We were just talking about an example before. And, this is a space where I think that threshold is going to be fairly low. I think that people to make the kinds of decisions for working with companies like ours, like it's better to talk to a person in that instance. Now with machinery, like we work with companies that sell really big, heavy equipment. That's a huge decision, but maybe because the equipment is manufactured and there's a lot more trust in the product itself, that until it reaches a high threshold of millions of dollars, that that a person's going to be needed. So it'll be interesting to see where that curve ends up, that the economic curve ends up going to. To wrap up our conversation, you in your final chapter, you talk about the next frontier of AI in sales. So augmented reality, AR, as you call it, virtual reality, and AI-driven market insights. What's the one AI development in sales that you believe most sales teams aren't ready for, but absolutely need to be?
Oh, that's a tough question. For me, I think that it's going to be an interesting scenario where there's so many things that are coming our way that, it's like drinking from a fire hose. I think that's one of your father's favorite lines, by the way. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
I don't know what that's like.
and I think in the future, what we talked about already is that you'll be talking to the machines and you'll be selling with the machine, hand in hand with the machine as you're having this conversation. And I think that's one of the things we're not anticipating, but is coming. When I look at augmented reality, I can see so many scenarios, especially in the physical parts space, where augmented reality is going to be used to sell like a building. Can you imagine just walking in and all of a sudden you have this, VR and there's a building.
That example you had, we're building a building, but it's going to be so beautiful. Is it built yet? No, but I promise.
I work with the pool industry a lot, and there's a company called, I think it's called Pool Studios or something. And this is like a few years ago, so I don't know where it's at today, but it had something really cool, JBJ. It had a, here's the pool design. It gives you a 3D rendering, right? So you can move furniture around, stuff like that. But then it was very specific. You could say, look, and this guy did it during the demo. I thought it was cool. I said, let's say it's the 4th of July. The sun is setting. Where would you like the hot tub to be? Type of thing. He said, well, let's punch it in. And he actually punched in, the date and the time, and the whole thing shifted. Like the sun shifted and then lowered. And then he goes, what I would do is put the pool right there. Or put the hot tub right there. I'll be able
Were
to
you
enjoy that.
standing in with him and the customer? Were you in the prospect? Were you
No, we
standing
were.
right there?
This was on a screen. That's today. It was just on the screen, but you see the whole thing just shift. The
God,
sunset. I'm like, are you kidding me?
I
So now imagine the next step, which is walking in and now being in that reality. And I think people think that's a long way away. It isn't. I think it's just a matter of, we're going through this transition. There's so many different technologies. I think one of the things we don't talk about that people are not talking about is all the things that are happening behind AI. There's something called an I think it's an MCP that just came out that they started using. It means nothing to the average person, but I'm telling you, it's a revolution because MCP has become the universal. It's like a USB-C
right.
for all the language models now. And it can plug into the internet and anything. This just happened like 4 or 5 months ago, which means now everything's going to be interconnected. So I bring that up because these are little pieces of technology that are enabling all this interconnection going on. When you look at the VR space, remember, Microsoft just announced that they do have the first, quantum computer. Now, for those who understand what that really means, it's like data becomes, in fact, password security is almost obsolete after that because it can crack codes quickly. But the data is going to be able to be processed so quickly that it's unimaginable how fast. And because we can do that, we can now simulate bigger environments.
Right. Because
so,
it's quicker. The rendering, if you've ever played, this is I'm gonna show my age, but if you ever played like a really intense video game, and if you don't have a computer or a system that runs well enough, the GPU and the RAM is just not big enough, you'll just know it buffers and the world sort of builds like pieces and it kind of comes together. And what you're talking about the quantum computing is that environment is not only built faster, but is much bigger, like exponentially bigger. I just love the example of that simulation, and you're thinking about it from a sales perspective. Imagine you're the salesperson, right? You can almost imagine going, oh, well, let's see, 4th of July, and where do you want that hot tub? Let's punch it in over here. You do it, and the whole thing shifts. You can look over, and you see the husband, just big smile on his face, turn right to his wife and say, "Can we?"
Yeah.
That's essentially the example we're talking about across so many different industries.
Well, by the way, you have a green room over there, right? Just like I used to have. And it's like, imagine you just have a room that's a giant green room. And then you put the glasses on and everything's projected from the floor on. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing.
This is a really, typically when we have these AI conversations and even you and I, when we have these conversations, they can become dystopian. They become, I think our negativity bias really drives us because we don't understand the unknown. We don't know what's happening beyond. We don't even know what's happening now, let alone what's going to happen in the future. So we sort of fill in the blanks with things that are negative. But I think that you are one of the better people to give, I guess, some reassurance in this space. You're both an engineer, which you don't talk about very much, and I need you to talk about more. Like you can forget more than I know on a daily basis. And one of the things that you are great at is looking at this and saying, this is not the end. This is just the beginning of something very new and very hopeful. So if you're talking to sales teams all over the world, you're talking to sales leaders, if you want to leave them with a positive note on AI, what would that be?
I would look at several different domains. That's from a sales standpoint, you're going to have a machine that's going to help you sell more effectively at levels you can't even comprehend today. Like when we talk about talking to the machine, it's another level, and you're going to be able to sell again in a way that you've never sold before, and have this literally this Einstein in your pocket, as they always say, kind of helping you and walking with you everywhere. You don't need to get somebody to help you. You know how back in the day, at least for me, we used to always have to bring like an engineer. I was always the engineer the salesperson brought along to answer the tough questions. You don't need that. So that means you're going to be augmented with the machine, right? Also, I like
become
to talk
Iron Man.
Yeah. It's you get your own Jarvis like a thing. And then there's the entrepreneur, and this we don't talk about this enough, but this is where I think one of the biggest changes is going to happen is that companies are going to flatten. In other words, you're going to be able to start your own company. You don't need 30, 40, 50 people. You don't need large capital investments. You're going to be able to build agents, at pennies on the dollar, and start your own company and start your own business. So there's another aspect of it. If you're in sales today, you're going to be able to have a sales and marketing agent that can help you market to your customers. You talk to your data. Look at my database. Who haven't I touched there? Who's more likely to churn? If they're likely to churn, what should we do? Come up with some ideas. You're going to be able to do so much more that I think you're going to be limited by your own imagination and whatever system you're on. So I'm optimistic that salespeople will change, will transform, will be better. But again, that also involves there's going to be a lot of movement. And again, whether it's replacement, displacement, abatement, whatever it may be, it's going to happen. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to see that AI is going to be a plus. That maybe that's just my optimistic curve on it. You know what I mean? I want to think about it that way.
I love it.
When I look at what happens in the healthcare field, when I look at what happens in terms of efficiencies, disease, and things like that, I go, okay, this could be good.
Yeah.
This could be good. But I think we're all guessing. But I don't know. I like to be a little hopeful because it's no point in being negative about this. So,
Well, it's going to happen to us whether we like it or not. So might as well just go in with a good attitude and see what happens, right?
No.
Well,
I like to believe that to be honest, what scares me is not the machine. The AI doesn't scare me. It's AI in a robot that scares me. That's the thing that bothers me the most, I think.
I think you've seen Terminator too many times.
Yeah, hopefully we have a universal kill switch,
Right.
But what's scary was, did you hear about the AI that tried to escape and clone itself on another server?
I think I read that.
You're like, oh.
Yeah, great. You know what? You just laugh. You just laugh and go, I didn't see that. I don't know. But
I didn't see that. But by the way, I think for a lot of people, if I can end on this note, start using some of the AI tools. They're not where we want them to be, but again, we're at the beginning of something just an incredible transformation, like a true digital transformation. And if you're not playing with the tools, getting used to them, figuring some of these things out, it's going to be clunky at first, but just get used to using them. And if you're not doing it, you're going to fall further and further behind, and that's not good.
Victor, thank you so much for joining us. I want to give you some space here. Where can people find you, learn from you, and pick up your book?
VictorAntonio.com, books on Amazon, Future of Selling. Check it out. Victor Antonio. I'm so popular. I'm everywhere, JPJ.
You're so popular everywhere. He's so popular that he is one of our most favorite coaches on Sales Gravy University. He has several courses, especially for sales leaders. His Monday morning playbook courses are incredible. They really get people going in the right direction. You've got some other great courses on Sales Gravy University as well. And go check out Victor's site. Go check out his book, The Future in Selling. And Victor, we really appreciate you being on the Sales Gravy podcast.
Thank you, JBJ.
Hi, I'm Jeb Blount, best-selling author of Fanatical Prospecting, Sales EQ, Objections Inked, and my brand new book, The LinkedIn Edge. Companies and people from all over the world come to me to get answers to their toughest sales and growth questions. And that's why I created Ask Jeb. It's a segment on the Sales Gravy podcast where you can come and ask me anything. If you want to get on the show, just go to salesgravy.com/ask. That's salesgravy.com/ask. One of our great producers will get you on and you can ask me anything about sales. Hey, I'm doing a happy dance because you watched this video. Make sure that you click like and subscribe so that you never miss one of our amazing sales training videos.